Builder! What is this? This is the Andycine A6 monitor. How much does it cost? Approximately $180. Can power your camera through the monitor with an additional dummy battery that's $20. With the largest Sony NPF battery, you can power the monitor and the camera recording at 4K continuously for 3.5 hours. If you're only powering the monitor, it can last anywhere from 6 to 7 hours. Has 4 quick function buttons instead of 2. The screen is super sharp, so it's easy to pull focus. It's got great colors that can match the GH5 screen quite well. It's nice and bright for outside use. Do I recommend it? Yes. Done. Roll that intro. What's up, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we are constantly and always still learning. So this week is another exciting video, as this week's video is being sponsored by Andycine. Now, Andycine has sent me their A6 monitor followed by a Panasonic dummy battery, and together we are going to figure out whether or not this monitor might be the right monitor for you and your setup. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the A6 monitor is essentially a 5.7-inch monitor. In the box, you're gonna get yourself a couple accessories. You got a mini or a micro HDMI to HDMI cable. You have a very awesome hot shoe bracket so you can mount the monitor onto your camera. And then lastly, you get yourself a nice, easy to use Velcro sun hood when you're shooting outside. Now, the monitor itself can be powered with a Sony NPF battery. It can also be powered through the wall with a basic 12-volt power supply. And there's an extra port here that's 8 volts, and that is so you can actually power your camera with a dummy battery that's an additional $20. Lastly, there is one HDMI port. Unfortunately, there is no HDMI out. Now, the main feature of this monitor, aside from it being small, compact, and at an awesome price point, is that you can power your camera and monitor with one Sony NPF battery. Now, this is awesome because that means I don't have to carry as many batteries with me. I can just carry maybe 2, 3, probably 4 to be on the safe side and be able to shoot all day with no problem. Because the power consumption of this monitor is actually quite low. It's approximately 8 watts. So when you're using this specific Sony battery that I love to use, that I'm going to talk about next week, its capacity is 6,600 milliamp hours, and this monitor is able to go anywhere between 6 to 7 hours on this one battery alone. When I'm recording with it continuously with my GH5, I was able to get 3.5 hours off of this one battery. So, like I said, if you want to, you could probably shoot an entire day with 3 to 4 of these batteries. Now, another awesome power feature of this is, yes, you can actually run your monitor and your camera through the wall power. You just need to make sure you get a 12-volt power supply with enough amps, and therefore you can power your entire setup with just one power source. This is extremely useful if you're shooting a lot of conference style events where you're locked up at a tripod and you're not really moving a whole lot, but you're shooting many, many hours. Well, just run yourself a stinger over to your camera and then one power supply, you're done. Another awesome thing about this monitor is just how sharp this panel actually is. Comparing it to a bunch of monitors I've used, I have the Lilliput A7S, which is a 7-inch monitor. I recently got to try out the Feelworld MA5, which I think is a 4.5-inch monitor. And then you have the back screen of the GH5 itself. Out of all these screens, the Andycine was the sharpest. I found myself second guessing whether or not I was in focus on the Lilliput, the MA5, and then even the back screen of the GH5. When I looked at the Andycine, I had no doubts in my mind that I was in focus when I looked at that image. And then when I hit the focus peaking feature, sure enough, it would confirm that I was in focus. So I'm not really sure why this is, but it's definitely awesome to know that the Andycine is so sharp that I am able to pull focus very quickly. Now, the panel quality in terms of color reproduction and viewing angles is quite good. The colors are nice and vivid, and the IPS panel definitely helps in terms of viewing angles. Now, if you want the A6 monitor to look as close as you can to the GH5's monitor, then all you have to do is enter these setting values, and there you go. The A6 monitor also comes with a whole host of features that most field monitors have these days, but the awesome thing about this monitor is that it gives you 4 function buttons instead of the usual 2. Now, the 4 that I use the most is focus peaking. The focus peaking is actually quite quick and responsive, and I was able to use it to pull focus accurately when the subject was moving around. I recently used it on the set of Wuxia 2 that's being directed by my colleague Johnny Wu, and these are some of the shots that I was able to get on that day when I used the monitor, and it was so easy. So the focus peaking is really good, and I highly recommend using it when you need to follow subjects around. Next, I have the false color. Now, this monitor does actually give you a chart, unlike the Lilliput A7S, so you can quickly reference what your exposure is like with that chart. Now, the third feature that I use quite often is the zoom in function. The zoom in is very nice. You can pop right in very quickly, and there is a little quirk about it though. If you're shooting the monitor a 4K signal, this feature doesn't work. I'm not really sure why, probably a processor thing. So you need to make sure your GH5 is shooting the monitor a 1080p signal instead of a 4K. Now, when you do zoom in, it's only gonna zoom into the center. It would have been awesome if you're able to kind of jump around on the screen, but it is what it is, and it works when you need it to. The last feature that I use is the flip monitor feature. Now, this was awesome because, again, on the set of Wuxia 2, when I was doing some blocking and I had Johnny actually sit in the spot when I was checking lights, I would then flip the monitor over, rotate it towards him, hit that button a couple times so that it oriented to his position. He would look at it from where he was sitting and said yes or no. So that's another very, very handy feature. Now, of course, there's no perfect monitor out there, and this one is no different. But the cons are really just kind of nitpicky. They're not a deal breaker by any means, but something that you should probably be aware of. Now, the first thing is that there is no HDMI output. So if you find yourself needing to run a wire back to Video Village, or maybe you do some wireless monitoring for the director, just know that this does not have an HDMI output for you to do that. Another thing is, in terms of the panel quality, once you start to get to IRE 90, I think, the image starts to blow out. So even though your camera might actually see detail there, the monitor itself cannot. So sometimes this might throw you off a little bit if you're looking at it for exposure and you're saying, oh, no, that's blown out, that's blown out. It might not actually be blown out. You have to check your monitor behind the GH5, or at least know what IRE values you're at. And then you'll know, no, the details there, it's just the monitor and the way it's being displayed. The hot shoe bracket, while it's awesome, I kind of wish that they designed the hot shoe bracket to be a little bit taller. And the reason I say this is because with people wanting to power their camera from the monitor's battery, it would have been nice to know that the largest Sony NPF battery could have a little extra clearance if you really, really do need to flip that monitor to face straight up. That's a little nitpick, but it would have been nice. Now, the last thing is the dummy battery. It has a coiled wire design, which is awesome because then it always comes back to that exact same position. However, it's really tight, and when you pull it all the way to the monitor, there's really no easy way to have this cord put out of the way. It basically just rubs along the camera, and it could change the way you grip the camera. It's not really a big deal, but it is something that I found a little odd. I wish it kind of had a little bit more slack so that I could loop it around something else instead of it crossing straight across the camera. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is the Andycine A6 monitor followed by the dummy battery is an amazing value for the money. The fact that I am able to power my monitor and my camera off of one Sony NPF battery is amazing. The specific Sony battery that I was using has 6600 milliamp hours, and it is able to power the entire setup shooting at 4K continuously for 3.5 hours. So essentially all I would need is 3 to 4 of those batteries, and I'm good to shoot for an entire shoot day. Now, if you film a lot of conferences where you're locked off at a tripod, then it is awesome to know that you just need a 12-volt power supply with enough amps, plug it into the monitor, and then the monitor dummy battery into the camera, and that's it. You just need one cord and it can power the entire thing. Now, the Panel itself, it's 5.7 inches, so it's nice, small, and portable, and I think it's actually the sweet spot for these types of monitors. It's got great color reproduction, the viewing angles are awesome, and again, this thing is sharp. I was second guessing my focus on all the other monitors when this one was literally next to it. So the fact that it outperforms, in my eyes, all those other monitors is great, especially if you have to pull focus on set. Not only that, this monitor has a bunch of the features that you know and love, and the fact that it has 4 function buttons so you can call up those features whenever you want is awesome. That extra 2 function buttons really does come in handy. Now, if there is anything I'm gonna hold against this monitor, it's the fact that it does not have an HDMI output. Even though our team doesn't necessarily run HDMI back to Video Village or a wireless HDMI signal, it would have been nice if they did have it, because it's just one of those features that is very handy. And hey, that's it for this week, everybody. If this video has made all the difference in your purchasing decisions, I would really appreciate it if you check out my Amazon affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you. It just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments about this monitor, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.